Make sure that they are treated well and they're seen as partners with us in patient care. And I think you're going to have a good success with your interactions with them.
Hello and welcome to the Soul Podcast on iCode Media. Today I had a great conversation with my good friend, Dr. Kyle Klute. We discussed, shady business tactics. Really, we discussed shady business tactics. There's no other way to put it. And the protocols we have in place in our offices to prevent those types of things from impacting our patients, impacting our attention span, and actually allowing us to give our attention to the person that wants our attention in an effective way. So please enjoy our conversation. As always, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, share it with your friends, and support those who support us. I want to discuss the MyDay toric contact lens for a minute. When I'm reaching for a daily lens for my patients, I need to know that it will be available in parameters that I want, and it needs to work. This improves my chair time and my patient satisfaction. The MyDay toric features the same optical lens design features as the most prescribed monthly replacement toric lens on the market. MyDay toric now completely mirrors the Biofinity toric's parameter range. To be clear, if you find the parameter in a Biofinity toric, you can find it in a MyDay toric. This toric lens design is multifaceted to ensure optimal visual acuity, lens stability, fit, and comfort. Its uniform horizontal ISO thickness and wide ballast band quickly orient the lens for better performance and simplified fitting. The MyDay material is CooperVision's softest one-day silicone hydrogel lens and features Aquaform technology combining a unique balance of high oxygen permeability and natural wettability. The result is a highly breathable lens that keeps our patients' eyes looking clear, white, and healthy. So if you haven't started utilizing MyDay toric in your practice, I'd encourage you to reach out to your CooperVision representative to get started. As you know, patients with vitreous floaters are often frustrated by their symptoms. The challenge as clinicians is to offer solutions for our patients for vitreous floaters that are effective. But more often than not, the options of YAG vitreolysis and vitrectomy are not practical because the benefits don't outweigh the risks. That's where Vitreous Health from MacuHealth comes into play. Previously on the podcast, I've discussed the FLIES study with Dr. John Nolan, and the bottom line is that I can be confident prescribing this for my patients with floaters because I can tell them a large randomized placebo-controlled trial found that after 6 months of supplementation with Vitreous Health, floaters were reduced in size by approximately 30%, and 70% of patients had an improvement in their symptoms. Vitreous Health has been great for my patients, and we really feel like we have a viable option to treat patients with vitreous floaters now that we didn't have before. If you're not utilizing Vitreous Health for your patients, reach out to your MacuHealth representative now. Well, thanks, Cal, for coming on today. I asked you to come on because I wanted to react to you. This came out, you and I have discussed this a number of times, and I've had kind of these instances over the last few months now, about 2 months, that really were kind of jarring to me, related to specifically pharmaceutical reps. And I'll say a pharmaceutical rep in my practice with really kind of a shady business tactic. And I had totally put it to bed. I had met with other people within the company to kind of talk about just in general, like I wasn't trying to rat this person out. I was just saying, this is just not acceptable. And I hope this isn't the business practice of what occurs all over the place, but I'll talk about that in a second. But then I had put it to bed. I had walked away. It was about a month had gone by. And then I get this tip from Envision Magazine, who I've asked to come on to comment about this, and they have not commented yet. But I'm going to read you the specific tip that was in my inbox, my email inbox. And it specifically says, can't get past the receptionist to the person you want to talk to? Call again and ask for accounts receivables department. Why? No company will turn away a caller potentially looking to pay a bill. How? Once you get someone on the line, say there appears to be a mix-up and ask for a person you really want to talk to. There's a good chance they can dial you straight through. And so then I'm going to leave the name of the source off. When I reached out to them, they said that this person didn't contribute anymore, but that it was an old tip that they had put out. In any case, I think it just helps, so I thought, whoa, is like, who's getting, then it sort of triggered my, my recollection of what had
Yeah, your
happened in
instincts.
my office with yeah. And so then I'm like, is this just how people are trained? Like, is this just sales tactics that happen? So,
Well, it's a good question.
yeah, go ahead.
No, it's a good question. I mean, I haven't had, you're going to share your example, a specific instance in your practice where you had a rep come in a little bit, but, I don't, um, I guess I should say, I know my reps well. I like them all as people. And so I want to put that aside. Like, we're not like anti-reps or anything like that. But
Totally. Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, we have a business to run, and it is, to our benefit to focus on patient care every single day that we're in the office. And so that just seems, I haven't had like real, I guess, obtrusive or events like what you're talking about, or people calling my AR person or my claims processing person to try to get a hold of me or anything like that. I don't think, they've never told me that, but that's just, that seems really shady, and I don't really care for that advice to be out there at all.
Yeah. So I think, without going into details and kind of rehashing the old story, I mean, ultimately what happened was a new pharmaceutical rep came into our office unscheduled and asked to speak with me. And when they were told that I was with patients and that typically we schedule reps so that, I mean, we'll talk about why in a second, but that, um, that's how we typically manage it. And then this person asked for where the restroom was and made their way back into the clinic area. And I'll say, they ambushed me in between patients. And typically if I'm not out there, I'll have my scribe who kind of sits at the technician spot, and kind of waits for me to come in and out of rooms. And she just wasn't there that day. It just happened to be that she wasn't there that day to kind of guard the space, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it was the most, I'll tell you what it was really interesting to me about it was, this has never happened to me before. And the reason it hasn't happened to me before is because we have really pretty rigorous standards in place in our practice, so that we're being primarily focused on patient, access to patients' information or patients in general. And so putting a rep in that place was not the place for them to be. And it was like, oh, hello, and so, and then I started reflecting on why I felt uncomfortable. And I think it was because I hadn't been in this position where we've got patients getting chaired, like they're getting worked up with doors open. The entire conversation that was happening in front of those patients. Theoretically, I have no idea what those patients heard or what they didn't hear. And then, as the rep is leaving, they're asking for, or they're telling how much the medication is with a coupon card, where the patient can go to get it. It's all over the place, and I can prescribe it right now to almost every patient in my practice. And I'm just thinking, I can't focus on, I can't focus on anything that you want to tell me right now, because I'm so concerned about what this patient in the exam room is feeling. And I can't give you my attention to ask good questions. Forget the fact that you got back and achieved what you wanted to achieve. So I thought it would be good to think about, like, how do we manage these situations so that we do have, because I'll say, like you said, 99.9% of the interactions I have with pharmaceutical company relations, let alone the fact that, like, pharma companies for the last 5 years have been 10 years have been super under heat with,
Right.
shows like Dope
Heavily
Sick and
scrutinized. Yep.
yeah, heavily scrutinized. And two, secondarily to the patient protection is I want to be able to give that representative time so I can listen to what they have to say, so I can analyze what they have to say and maybe give them good, ask good questions so I can see how it might impact my patient care. And then three, I need to be in the right headspace, right?
Right.
And then if I'm not in the right headspace, they're going to get zero value out of it. Most of the time it's not going to be negative value. This rep clearly in this company got way negative value in my mind. And that's going to be very hard to overcome. But number three is they don't get any value out of that. Like it's just not a zero value proposition. So what are the kind of things you do in your practice, Kyle, to help prevent that?
Yeah, great question. I think it's pretty similar to what you do as well. I'll have to say, like, it really, for me, it has depended upon where my practice is too. If my plan or my protocol right now for handling rep interactions is different now versus, excuse me, about 4 years ago when we were, seeing 15 to 18 patients a week when we were just starting out, right? So at that time, I'm really big, and I know you are too, big on culture, big on like leading in a way, like showing your staff how you're going to treat people, no matter who comes into the office. So at that time, I would have time to, because I'm seeing 15, 18 patients a week when we started out. I would have time to come out and meet every single rep up in the front desk area, and I would talk to them, give them the 3 to 5 minutes that they want, which I think specifically I've heard like they're after about 2 minutes or more, right? Anything under 2 minutes, I think they're probably not going to. I think is what the kind of the sales tactics. I could be wrong. It might be 90 seconds or something like that. But they want to be face to face. That's what they're there for. They want face to face with you because, and they want to establish and build that relationship with you, which is good. We want that too, because at the end of the day, they want them to, they want you to prescribe their medication. But like I said, at first, I was doing that. But then as we've gotten more busy, our protocol is different now. Our protocol is a rep comes in. If they come in unannounced, which I don't really care for anymore, we try to have everybody scheduled to come in. But if they come in unannounced, it's the same sort of a discussion from my front desk person. And she basically just says, hey, thanks for coming in. And we're a practice. We have them say this. We're a practice that loves new information. We like all this, new technology, and we love to implement that. But Dr. Klute's time is really precious between his 2 locations now, and he learns best by reading. So if you could just drop off your materials, and then here's his email, and I give him my email. Here's his email. He loves to read journal articles. Send him some journal articles about your product. And honestly, that to me, and that's not just like something that we're trying to mitigate. It is to mitigate my time or to help me kind of guard that time. But also, like I'm not going to prescribe something. I'm kind of cynical by nature, I'll be honest with you. So if a rep is talking to me about something, my eyes are going to glaze over within 60 seconds because of the random stuff that they're talking about, and the press release type information really never really doesn't move the needle for me when I'm making decisions. Really, I have to go back and read the information myself. I need to read a journal article or the FDA trial article on it to really help myself understand where that medication is going to be best positioned. So that's what's helped me. I don't know if that's similar to your kind of protocol, but what is yours?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, we do the same thing. So typically, the reps that we know well, we have great relationships with them. And then as new reps come in, you're almost having to train them about what those things are, again, so that you can get good information and how you prefer information. Typically, I'm like you. I can sit and listen for a little bit of time, but I don't want an advertisement. Like I don't want to,
well said.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes it'll feel, if it feels, phony, you'll hear about. So again, you asked me for my process. Yes, we schedule them. I'll schedule to meet with them so that they have my undivided attention for 5 to 15 minutes, depending on what rep it is and what the information is they're talking about and how new it is. and then after that, so they just never get back, and it's never in between patients, and part of that is because when I'm in clinic, I'm in clinic,
Right.
and
Patient care
so
mode.
exactly, and so I can't. It's just hard for me to switch and assimilate, and they don't understand that necessarily. Like they don't understand that when you come in and just verbally just give me an advertisement, it might do the trick because it might trigger something in the back of my mind that says something maybe that I'm thinking about, but it's not really going to be hugely advantageous to
Yeah,
me. So it's
I would
like
agree.
I don't want
I
to.
don't think, yeah, sorry to interrupt. I don't think I've ever, I can't remember one thing because I've been in a ton of interactions, in my 10 years of practice, I've been in a ton of interactions like that. And I can't remember one piece of like information, advertisement, one little treatment nugget stick in those moments because my mind is somewhere else. I'm always thinking, what do I need to be doing next? What patient do I need to be seeing next? And it's never a good moment for me or for them, so it's not advantageous for them as well.
Yeah, exactly right. And so, but I don't mind listening because I actually will pick up some things listening that I'm
Hmm.
kind of like, well, that's interesting. Then I want to know, like you, I want to know more about it. Okay. So you say that 90% of patients, blah, 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 blah. Awesome. Can you share that data with me? And then I want to
Hmm.
dive into it, not because I don't trust them. I want to think about like, how does this apply to the clinical care I'm giving? And it lets me kind of deepen that thought process and then think about the patients that this will apply to. And that just
What
becomes more helpful.
What do you, so do you actually have, so say, new pharmaceutical comes out, new dry eye drop, add it to the list of many, but we have a new rep in
Mm.
town. Are you putting them on your clinic schedule for that? Are you blocking off like 15 minutes of that with your clinic schedule?
We used to, well, actually what it would be like morning. So I wouldn't block off patients. It would be like, well, we've got a slot right before Dr. Wolfe starts clinic, or
Okay.
maybe in between a couple patients, we can put that person there and I can pop out and kind of get my mind where I want it and come in and out. But because, because that has led to more of these kinds of things, it becomes more difficult. Just more of my attention as I've gotten busier. My attention, it's hard for me to switch attention spans, and so what we do is we just like we'll schedule usually a time in between morning and afternoon patients
Hmm.
that I can kind of recompartmentalize. But now, Kyle, I've talked to you about my schedule is I see patients from 7:45 straight on through until 4:30 in the days I'm in clinic. And so I do have a slight break, but literally that break is to sign the charts I wasn't able to sign in the morning, get something quick to eat, and I'm pretty much back on. So now it's more so on my associate to meet when it's for her schedule, and then if it's something that she wants my opinion about, or it's something that she's like, you should check this out, then I will. But we've kind of
Hmm.
pushed it to the associate first.
What about contact lens reps? How do you see them differently than pharmaceutical reps, or do you? Because I know I kind of
Uh,
do.
yeah, I do. I think there's a couple things related to that. I think the first one is that that we're making purchases in our practice for a thing, right? So a lot of times I'm purchasing, lenses from them. And
Sure.
so understanding the metrics of what that might do to like if I'm going to bring in a bank or a bulk, then there's other business discussions that go on related to that, and a lot of like, okay, historically, what have we done? Like I can run those numbers really quickly, but hey, we've got this offer that we can bring in, this lens. It makes a lot of sense because you're using those. Okay, well, it's just a deeper discussion. It's sort of a different discussion in a lot of cases. Once we have gotten beyond the discussion of like, is this clinically equivalent or is this appropriate for specific patients, then it's the business discussion. That business discussion doesn't really happen within a pharmaceutical company or a pharmaceutical rep, and they're not comfortable
Right.
having it really.
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a
What
good
about you?
point. I kind of see it the same way. That's more of a, hey, let's get it on the schedule, and we set those up. You probably do the same thing quarterly, and I think it's different also just because for us as a vision source practice, you are too, but we try to deal with two companies pretty exclusively, and we see those as partners, and they're vendors like you said, and lens vendors as well for optical lenses as well, or ophthalmic lenses. We're going to set those up, but yeah, I do see that differently, and they're at a place where we have those set up on a quarterly basis, and maybe we'll
Right.
have lunch or something like that with them, but. Yeah, I guess where I'm coming at with this, with the pharmaceutical side too, is that I have probably, I kind of explained my protocol a little bit before, but I kind of like I've kind of swung the pen from one side to the other with the pendulum. Like I'm meeting with everybody and now I'm meeting with nobody. So I kind of like your plan there of potentially integrating that, a 15-minute slot or a 10-minute slot or something like that. But then again, you got to think about, when I think about my schedule, and I know we talk to a lot of other doctors about this, whether it's through our protocols that we create or through the total patient care model, is thinking about revenue per OD hour, right? So you got to be thinking about, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes, if you're, to make the math easy, if you're at $600, revenue per OD hour, that 5 minutes is, what is it, $50?
Yeah.
Are they going to bring $50 of value in that moment? That's one exam from one VCP. So you just have to think about how you can manage that time, and is it worth it? And they have to understand that as well. Like if they are getting on your schedule, and especially if it's taking over patient time or even your time, that's just precious. You gotta guard those minutes.
The most common questions I get include, what ophthalmological codes or evaluation and management codes should I use? What ICD-10 codes do I need to bill with this CPT code? What CPT codes can be billed together and what can't? And my favorite, how do I manage a patient who has diabetes who comes in for a quote-unquote routine eye exam? These questions really highlight the confusion and uncertainty that serves as a daunting hurdle for providers, makes it more challenging for them to care for their patients and provide those patients with the best opportunity for a lifetime of ocular health and clear vision. That's why we built iCode Education, for this specific purpose. Our mission is to provide optometrists with resources to help you understand disease states, revenue cycles, and billing and coding so that you can put that on autopilot and truly care for your patients. Check out iCodeEducation.com. That's EYECODE education.com. We've developed a premier billing and coding bundle that includes all of our billing and coding resources in one place. We also have a 10% discount code just for listeners of this podcast. Enter the coupon code EYECODEMEDIA22 at checkout. We'd love to work with you. Check out iCodeEducation.com. So I just had a conversation with Dr. Jesus Martinez, and we had a little bit of discussion about the value of our services. And really, it seems kind of brash to talk about like, well, are you going to provide $50 of value for me? But it's true. Like, I had somebody, I can't remember who it was, but they actually did that. Like the front desk staff would say, this block of time costs Dr. So-and-so this much money. Now, my job is to see if what you are talking about adds that much value. I mean, they were blunt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't think I'd have the guts to do that, but but I love that. It's just recognizing the value of your time. And of course, like I said, we talk about that a lot, but you have to, I think the average, revenue per OD hour is 400. So if it's going to be less than $50 for 5 minutes. It's going to be probably $60 to $75 per 10 minutes. But a lot of times those conversations can last 10 to 15 minutes, and then that goes by, and that could have been one patient that you saw, or that could have been, if you're an owner, one thing that you've accomplished on your list of many things you're doing that day. So, but yeah, I think the protocol is really what we're talking about is just being intentional, as we always do. Like, have a plan, train your staff, and really like make sure that they like I said before, I tend to be a little bit cynical towards new and flashy stuff and sales reps, but make sure that they are treated well and they're seen as partners with us in patient care. And I think you're going to have a good success with your interactions with them.
Well, yeah, I agree, and I think, yeah, you absolutely want to treat them well. And I think also what I've seen, I've been around long enough to see that one rep from one company will be the rep for the next company right away. In six
Right.
months, and so I don't want to mistreat them. Like they should also not want to do these things, but I don't want to mistreat them. Um, and then they're a rep for a company I've always liked a lot, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, so I don't ever want to mistreat people. And this specific rep I was very kind to and nice to, and my whole intention afterwards was like, I don't want to get this person in trouble. Like that's what I led with. I'm not trying to get somebody in trouble.
Mm.
And the company did, they said, well, they're not going to get in trouble. But we're going to use it as a teachable moment. And I think the company really, when I reached out to them about it, because I've had communication with that company for other things as well, is they took it to heart. They did what I would hope we would do as a practice if I gave a patient an unpleasant experience, is to try to gain more understanding, see where we can fix things, see if there was something systematic in our processes that were off-putting to that patient. And if not, like if it was, because it could be me, like the reality is like this situation could be my interpretation of it. Like I could be missing it. I don't think I am, but I could be. But I would want to know that as a business owner. And I think they did a very good job of listening, apologizing, but not, and also not normalizing,
Yeah,
normalizing
good.
this behavior, so I think they handled it really well. I just think that this other article that popped up, and actually, and this comes to the next point about how you treat people. There was, we had a patient a couple years ago who was just nasty to our staff, just nasty to him. And she wound up leaving. I mean, it wasn't about clinical care at all. It was just about, it was about bills or something. Like it was about, having to pay for something that went to her deductible. And,
Pay for her
she, to this
diabetic
point,
exam. Diabetic exam
exactly.
went to medical, not
Yeah, I can't
ESP.
remember exactly what it was, but yeah, exactly. And so, which is, by the way, what what the Managed Vision Care Handbook said to
You're
do.
right.
But that's not what they told the patient or what the patient heard from them. But anyway, and so she wound up leaving, and we're kind of like, thank the Lord she left, because she was just not, like, in all interactions, it was just never an easy interaction, not just with that,
Mm.
but with everything. And then I get a letter about a year and a half later that just out of the blue, thank you so much, Dr. Wolfe, for taking such good care of me, blah 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 blah, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, wow, that was really nice of her. Like she's still not get back on the schedule, but it was really nice of her. She already requested her records to go someplace else. We're like, you've already got, and then maybe a month later, I get a notification that she was now a pharmaceutical rep for a company that was,
There
that,
you go.
and so then it was like, oh, wow, amazing. So that I think about that. I mean, I think about it all the time. It's like, I try not to burn any bridges. I'm sure
Yeah,
I
you just
talk a
never
lot,
know.
but you never know. So I don't think I've disclosed anything about this specific company or the specific person. I don't even think I've disclosed gender. I was trying not to do, which is good. So yeah. So Kyle, one of the things that you and I have talked a lot about is this need for understanding evidence, and also, I've had some people on the podcast before that take a really, really hard line. Like, it is no, if you're a pharmaceutical rec, you're never coming into the practice. I don't want to know
Yeah.
anything about you. But you and I have discussed that a lot about should that be our mechanism, and we sort of both agree that no, we need them. They do a lot of good things for patients, but we have to put these things in place, and part of that is understanding the evidence and kind of learning a lot. And so you're going to launch a new podcast. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Yeah, great. No, I agree. Yeah, I'm excited for it. Probably start next 2024. We're going to call it 2020 Habits. And really, if you've seen any one of my lectures in the last year, I've included a couple quotes from a favorite book of mine called Atomic Habits. And a couple great quotes from James Clear, the author, is really what we're going to base the podcast around. Number one is that our beliefs underlie our actions, and our actions reinforce our beliefs. So the reason why that's such a great quote is because when we create protocols or when we try to create new habits or actions in our practice, we get so focused in on the actual, like the practical nature of those actions, right? And oftentimes we fail. We go to a CE event and we learn some new, protocol, and we try to enforce it in our practice, but we often, sometimes we're successful, but most times we sputter after several weeks of trying to implement that. Well, that key insight that the belief is what actually underlies that action is super helpful, because if we can start with the belief first and know what that action, what type of belief underlies that action, and really emphasize that belief in our life, like, for glaucoma, believing that we are the best trained, best equipped providers, period, to provide glaucoma management, we're going to easily implement new glaucoma protocols in our practice, right? So those are the types of things we'll talk about. Another quote that I love is that from that book, Atomic Habits, is that people don't rise up to the level of their goals. People fall to the level of their systems. And so I'll just repeat that. People don't rise to the level of their goals, but we all fall to the level of our systems. So, those two quotes kind of go hand in hand, in that if we create good protocols and systems and create good habits in our practice, those are the things that are actually going to create momentum and push us forward in the long run. And then also reinforcing the beliefs around those habits and practices is what are going to, create really good sustainable practices in the future. So, you were talking about evidence-based medicine, and a lot of the way that I create practical, protocols and clinical protocols in my practice is I read a lot of the evidence-based medicine, and that phrase can get thrown around a lot, and it can be misunderstood quite a bit. But really, what it means is it's the combination of the randomized clinical trial. It's a combination of really the best research out there. It's a combination of our clinical expertise, the things that we can theoretically put together. And it's also a combination of that experience that we've had in the past. And then when you filter that through the patient experience, that's what evidence-based medicine is. So we'll have a lot of discussions on how that package kind of filters through eye care, and try to have a lot of speakers with us, and to kind of unpack, what are their daily habits, what are their clinical habits, and hopefully provide value to other optometrists. So I'm super excited for it. It should be a fun process.
Yeah. I'm excited to see where it goes. Well, thanks for coming on and chatting about this. I appreciate it. I look forward to your upcoming podcast, and thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.